finished the English version of a super incredible video for our agency. We're about ready to start on a Spanish version, so we were able to do that. We have had 4 tabling sessions that were amazing. It was really with the Latino community of folks coming here to this office, to that round table over there, saying, if you're going to do this, you better do it right, and here's how to do it. And I'll talk to you a little bit more about that with the challenges. We've hosted 2 very large events here in Klamath County that blew our socks off. We didn't know that we would have the success that we did. Modga came to one of those. She even helped serve the meal. So she deserves an atta girl for that. That was really, really good. We sent our bilingual intake coordinator to Philadelphia to become a housing counselor, so she can help our Latino community here, where there's been such a bridge in, well, she's our bridge. There's been such a barrier in language for myself and Donna that we're the only 2 employees of this housing center. And now she's able to take and deliver the great services that we offer to the Hispanic community, to Latinos. We've also sponsored a couple of very large Hispanic Health Committee sessions, and there is quite a there's quite a bridge also with financial health and physical health, as you all know. So we were able to host that luncheon. We could have never been able to do that without this grant. We purchased a very large whiteboard, Vibe. I don't know if anybody has ever worked on the Vibe board, but it is incredible. You can do many things at one time in terms of teaching a class and sharing e-learning with this board. So we were able to do that. Yeah, there's a lot more, but I know we only have a certain amount of time.
Well, I appreciate that. Thank you so much. And we're gonna ask Dave to kind of jump in. Dave, are you still there? Are you here? You're muted, Dave.
Yeah. Okay. Thanks. So yeah, we got it both years as well. We actually have had a Spanish-speaking person at all times, been lately Salvador, but for the past many years, and that's really been critical. I think without that, it would have been very hard. But yeah, so we've used it. We had good timing. There's a new group, relatively new group in Hood River. That's a Hood River Latino support group, and we've kind of been tagging along with them last year. The previous year, we spent money on community outreach, like at schools. We would often have a table with our Spanish signs up, Spanish flyers, drawing, and which is another use of the funds. We used it for some merchandise to hand out. We also did some gift cards to be able to draw people to our table. But we have provided food, and that seems to be a big hit with schools. So if you do it on like their open house events, we did one just, I say we, Salvador did it with another person a week or 2 ago, and it was a English second language outreach type community. So it was almost entirely Spanish speaking people in our area. And I think that went over really well. For that one, we actually had some specific food that was mini, I say call mini as a conscious or totally. How do you say that, Salvador? But anyways, we had, okay, so yeah, we had food. That's, I think, critical. I think that's really helped have food at those events. We did a vibe board as well. That's been great for education. We do a lot. Our finance classes are both in person, but then during that class, we also will have if anybody wants to, they can Zoom in, and that's been critical for that. That's been really helpful. Again, so we partnered with schools, we partnered with the Latino group. Also, because of our past experience with the Realtors Association, we've gotten a little mini down payment grant from them for many years now in a row. And because of that, we were invited to, they've hosted a couple of home buyers big events, one in Spanish, one in English, and we participated in both those through this. And again, got people to come to our table with our down payment information. We were able to have a drawing, some gift cards for drawings. So that's been pretty nice. We do our classes through the community college. So that's been another outreach that hasn't necessarily been impacted by this grant, but it's just another way we do outreach. Salvador, can you think about the things I missed?
Pretty much you kind of really covered it all, but in all retrospect, the amount of support that we've had with this group, the Hood River Latino group, is basically where most of our outreach has really been going out towards, because there is one Latino radio station. They were able to get us in contact with somebody in that organization to be able to, run some ads, promote ourselves as well too. They're actually helping us promote our event that we're going to be holding on the 22nd of this month. It's going to be basically just ourselves, and then basically telling everybody in the community, which is Hood River and Wasco counties. Obviously, since we service two areas, two states, which is Washington and Oregon. We actually service 5 counties in total, so it's going to be a big event. They typically have anywhere between 150 to 250 people at each of their events, so that's why we definitely have partnered up with them, because they have a really large Latino community networking. So, yeah, that's pretty much it, though.
Yeah, real quick. Yeah, they've had events, 200 or 300. I know they've mentioned as what they think they had. And then one last thing is, we also did spend a fair amount of money. I mean, it amazed me how much in a way at advertising. Like we did, there's one station in town that's big enough where they have the platform to do it on Facebook. So when you open up your phone to do something, it's in the apps, it's in the radio, it's in their page on the web. So we're a small area, but they kind of act like a bigger place to get the word out. And so we've been doing it with Spanish language ads in them in all sorts of facets for that. And as Salvador mentioned, we're definitely spending money at the Spanish only radio station.
Beautiful, beautiful. Thanks, David and Salvador. Let's
thank you.
Of course. We got 3 more questions. We're going to go to Carla. You there?
Hi, this is Carly. Hi,
Carly, I'm
everyone.
sorry.
No, that's okay. Carly Adams. I'm the program manager at the Center for Mediation and Dialogue. We are a program in the city of Beaverton, and I'll just mention that we are a little different than I think some of the other grant recipients in that our primary purpose is to provide mediation and conflict resolution services to community members, and so our connection with this is that we have a housing mediation program. So we focus on providing that mediation as needed in the foreclosure avoidance mediation program, as well as the manufactured home park and marina parks, also landlord tenant. So various things related to housing, along with our community mediation and restorative justice work and some other programs that we also offer in this. So I just want to mention that because it's a little different than I think some of the other folks. And so with that, this is our first year to receive the grant. And so some of the things we've been doing have been, translation of some essential documents that was really needed for us, as well as, utilizing the in-person, on the phone, interpretation services. We utilize those services quite often. And also we've modernized some of our equipment in this to be able to be more accessible and reduce some barriers for folks to be able to access and utilize interpretation. So that's some of the technical things we've been using it for. And then the last thing I'll mention as a highlight is something we're calling our Spanish language cohort. And what this has been is it's a cohort. In Washington County here, we recruited about 17 Spanish-speaking mediators who've gone through mediation training. They're, supportive of conflict resolution as a practice, and they wanted to come together as a group and meet several times. So 10 meetings in total, starting back in September all the way through June, to ultimately, in a series of facilitated conversations, talk about best practices related to Spanish-speaking mediation services. And we've been able to, with the help of this grant, have this be facilitated. It's entirely in Spanish, facilitated by a Spanish-speaking facilitator with a Spanish-speaking project manager that's helping to take notes and collect all this. The ultimate goal is that they're coming up with a list of recommendations for the county, and then they're also going to provide this for the statewide organization of mediation centers. So it's been I'll talk a little bit about the success of that in the next questions. I'll pause there, but that's the overview of that project that I wanted to mention.
Oh, thank you. It's beautiful. We got our next question, and we're going to ask Michelle to lead off after I read the question. What are some of the successes you have had in implementing continuing your program using the language access and the community outreach grant funding? Michelle, would you lead off?
In a word, it's trust. I cannot tell you how powerful that component has been for us. And again, realizing that this is Southern Oregon, a very rural part of the county, for part of the state of Oregon, Klamath and Lake County, just building that trust with, for instance, Lake County, it's a Latino Unities group that just went Facebook Live, and I listened to the broadcast last night. I could understand some of that, but she had known me. I had to dig to find where our community was there. I had no idea. I felt that I was being equitable by giving out flyers that were double-sided, one in English, one in Spanish, and that was not the case. We had to dig and meet with people, and by word of mouth, it has flown. That's been a challenge and a success, and a huge success. So more than anything, the trust relationship that has been built when we thought there already was one, but there really was not. Dave mentioned the radio stations. So before we weren't paying for any advertisement on the Spanish radio station. It's a large Spanish radio station here in Klamath County, and now we can. We are able to, and that is broadcasted everywhere. So we've had people walking into our little shop here that never would have been able to do that. That's a huge success. Just having the community trust us and word of mouth spreading is our success story for Little Klamath and Lake counties.
Okay. Thank you, Michelle. Dave.
Yeah, so I already kind of covered part of this. The group, the Latino group specific reach out there. And then, that buys you some credibility, or at least get you started on that path. And it's repetitive. You have to keep being in front of them. So we participated in like 3 or 4 of the events. We did 3 or 4 school events here. We did the 2 realtor events. We did repeated. Get your face out there and just be partners with somebody else. At least in rural areas, we're not big enough to do it all on our own. So we have to find out who is helping. And we had been working with the Next Door Inc., and they do some outreach. Certainly they do programs for the Latino community. But we found that these guys are kind of more involved in it and more energy. So we've kind of switched horses that we're riding and gone with that Latino group. They've been great.
Beautiful. Thank you. Carly?
Yeah. So I started to mention our Spanish cohort, and I would say like this is the in terms of successes of implementing that, I think this is the one that we're really excited about how this has gone. I think that what Michelle said about building trust has been absolutely true as well. We've really seen this group come together and the relationships just flourish. It's very exciting. People don't want to leave the space. They just stay. The meeting's over, stay and continue to have conversations. So I think that, and I also add that, even though everybody in there is a Spanish speaker, there are multiple cultures represented. It's a very multicultural, diverse group. That some folks in the space born in Oregon and grew up bilingual, other folks are immigrated from different countries. So that group also just have a lot of different experiences that they're bringing to that conversation in these really like deep conversations about best practices. So I think that's the thing that we're really excited about, because even though we don't know all of where it will go next, it feels like it's very momentum building. And so we anticipate that they're going to also help drive, like we want to keep this going forward, past this project. So I think that's something I'll highlight.
Beautiful. Beautiful.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you, Carly.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Question number 3. Hey, Dave, you take the lead on this one. Okay. What are some of the challenges you have encountered? What are solutions you have found to overcome these challenges?
Well, again, speaking from the rural side of things, I have 2 here now, and 2 of us, sometimes 3. And if that Spanish-speaking person leaves Salvador, then we're kind of dead in the water again. So that's a nightly concern, sort of. But we've been able to overcome it a little bit we borrow the housing authority. We're in the same office, so I'm sure they're not necessarily unique in that, but that definitely is a big asset. So we've had some of their staff attend, like the Realtors Association, and one of the housing authority people is a former real estate broker, so that helps. She had the background and was able to, and she's been with us, in our same organization, the housing authority organization, for many years. So we've been able to borrow staff in that regard. But yeah, really, that's my biggest problem is, it's hard to ramp up to that second or third position. The funding might be there for part of the time, but then you're worried you're going to be able to keep them full time. So we're kind of in that. I'm going to be stepping down as the manager soon, like maybe this month, or is this month, and I'll be around probably through at least the end of the year. But do we have enough funds to get that another Spanish-speaking person on to sort of replace me? I'm hoping we can make it work. But that's our thing. Is small. It's hard to have that staff you need.
Okay, thank you, Dave. Carly, I'm going to ask you to go ahead and make your contribution for that question.
Sure. I had to think about this because I was like, I didn't really feel like we'd had like a specific challenge as much as I think that being the first time that we had the grant, we had plenty of things that we could work on in terms of like, like I said, some baseline things that we really needed to address. And like going forward, I think one thing that a lot of this work requires is staff time, right? Like it's staffing time to be able to continue the work and to be able to do this. And I think that there's limitations currently in how much grant money can go to staffing. And I think that that's a challenge for us, is try to like, how do we really sustain and continue to build some of this, because it feels really meaningful for the community and for our team, and feel like it's really important work to be done. And I think that the staffing thing is the challenge that we've been working around, but it's not totally resolved, right? So that's what I got.
Okay, thank you, Carly. Michelle, you're up.
All righty, I would echo that a million times, Carly. And for us, it's the difference between equality and equity. And I keep that in a big sign beside me at all times in my office. That's it was the biggest challenge, and it remains to be what we have to continue to look at that difference and really understand in a meaningful way the differences. So, and what I mean by that is when we put together our largest event, which was the most meaningful of Klamath County, it was the Day of the Dead, and it was I will butcher this, but it's Dia de los Muertos. That came from leaders in the community coming to the round table, buying them lunch, saying, "Okay, Michelle, you're going to do this. You better do it right." And that was a little scary, a little intimidating. I thought I did do it right. I thought, oh my gosh. But the equality information that they give me was like, November is a perfect time of the year to do this, to hold this event. The folks are going to be here. They don't know you. They don't know your services. So you better have a table that has a loan officer to explain an I-10. And if they can even do a loan, do a home buying, mortgage with an I-10, you better have that in place. And that's how they told me. They were people that I knew, and I listened. And then you better have a real estate table set up. You better have a good realtor that's very communicative and not speaking in all the jargon that a realtor or a lender may talk about. That was the most valuable piece that we walked away with, is listening and then creating what we thought we knew that we didn't. The equitable lens. And I know we've all heard that statement before, an equitable lens. We've heard it and heard it and heard it, but do we really know what that means? To me, the equality is giving someone a shoe, giving everybody the shoe. And then the actual equity is making sure that darn shoe fits. And isn't that so true? It's what we're all trying to do. It's simple, but it took me a while to learn that. That was the challenge. That's how we overcame it, by listening and really holding an event. It was our first year. We didn't know. So it was fabulous.
Well, thank you. Thank you for sharing. The last question, Carly, I would like you to lead off. And the question reads as following: what recommendations do you have for others in applying for or utilizing the Language Access and Community Outreach Grant?
Sure. I thought about my answer ahead of time and then I realized we've said some of this. So it's a little bit of an echo of some things we've already been saying. But I guess my thought on this of course, there's like these essential things, interpretation and translation. But I would encourage applicants to think bigger and deeper about the people that are like people won't access a service that they don't trust. And so I think it is that developing the trust with organizations and with people and really connecting. It's not just about translating the words. It's like, how do people see it in their own context and their own lived experiences, and how does their life connect with the service? So I think that's like my encouragement, is to be thinking about it in a bigger way, beyond just sort of that introductory level. Yeah, so that's my thoughts on think bigger.
Beautiful, beautiful. Thank you, thank you. Michelle, why don't you hop in real quick?
I would say that equitable lens, be thinking outside the box a little bit more, uh, be willing to really have your good listening ears on when people are talking to you. Invite them in and trust that they know what they're talking about, meaning the Latino leaders. Don't be afraid to utilize the funds. And Gary, you know darn well I have been. You know, we were so afraid to, okay, will this be billed without, will that, it's our first year. So I suppose that would be another component, is to be able to utilize and spend out that money in a very meaningful and valuable way.
Thank you, Michelle. Beautiful. And lastly, David, why don't you hop in, Dave?
Yeah, so like I said, we've kind of said it, Michelle and Gary, I know you want us to use the money, you approve, we had our plan, we've changed it, you say, well, that sounds like a good use, go ahead and do it, and so that's, use it. And then again, partnerships are invaluable. And yeah, get people to kind of at least come to you, and that's, the giving out of the drawings and stuff really helped us really get people to actually come to our table, because we've got tables where 3 people stop by a whole night. And so that's really helped to actually have them draw. I mean, it's sort of a bait and switch, maybe is what you call it, that it works. So, and again, we don't get not 100% of people that do that come back and get services, but at least they see us, and maybe in a year down the road, they will remember us.
Beautiful. Well, Michelle, Dave, and Carly, thank you so much for taking up your time. And again, we cannot express our appreciation for you taking advantage of helping those who really need the help the most. And more importantly, spending your time with us and sharing this invaluable information with us. So again, thank you for your time.
Thank you, Gary, for leading that panel. Yeah, thank you again, Carly and Dave and Michelle, for sharing your experiences. I'm going to share my screen again, and we are going to go into some program updates. So I will pass it over to Ryan with some HAF updates.
Yeah, thank you, Talia. Hi, everyone. My name is Ryan Vandenbrink. I use he, him, and I'm the Assistant Director of Homeowner Assistance Programs, which means I am the manager of the HAF program. That is a pandemic response housing program to help people avoid foreclosure and keep them in their homes and improve housing stability. We've got big news coming out of February of this year. We finished processing and paying all of our applications. We've spent over $70 million in direct assistance to over 2,600 applications. Of those applications, of those 2,600 applications, we have helped over 7,700 individuals in those households, including over 3,700 dependents that live in those households. So I think we had a great reach. 90% were low-income households. Our average award was just under $27,000. The homeowners have now moved into a 5-year monitoring period for loan forgiveness unless they sell or do a cash out refinance earlier. And we have also provided indirect assistance by connecting homeowners to informational resources, including OregonHomeownerHelp.org, which is about mortgage default, the foreclosure process in Oregon, and it helps connect people with free housing counselors for foreclosure avoidance counseling. We have helped connect people to local organizations, many of whom are on this call, for application assistance. And a big thank you to everybody that helped. And then we help connect people with free or low-cost legal services throughout the state of Oregon. So I want to again say thank you to everybody on this call that helped us make this program a success. We are currently working to wind it down. And if you are working with homeowners who have payment issues, our last week to make short payments, or if you happen to be a servicer on the call, our last week to make up payments that were short is next week. After that, we will be unable to make up any short payments. So if you get word of any homeowner that thinks that they did not get the full payment they were supposed to get, please send me an email and we will look into it, but we have to get that payment out by the end of next week under our service provider vendor agreement. So that is all that I've got to report, and thanks again.
Thanks so much, Ryan, and thanks to your team who worked so hard to get this program launched and helping so many homeowners over the past couple of years. So, great. Next, who's our next update? Alicia, do you want to share some updates from the Homeownership Assistance Program?
Hi there, Alicia Howell. I'm the program analyst here. I'm managing the HOPE programs. Our Restore Health and Safety and Down Payment Assistance for Veteran Funding RFA closed last week, and we're hoping to post the intent to award by mid-April. And that will be in Oregon Buys, just for your information. It won't be posted on our website. It'll be through Oregon Buys when we do get that posted. I also want to share that we put in an ask in this current legislative session for a budget request for down payment funds. And as we get closer to finding out more information about those down payment funds, whether they will be allocated to Oregon Housing or not, we will be reaching out for some partner engagement. We would want to have a conversation about our current program and work with our partners to see if there's any updates or changes that potentially need to be made based on how the current program has been performing and things if we get these funds and how we possibly need to make any changes for the upcoming funding. So please keep your eye out for any technical advisories that come out from the Homeownership Program news. And that's it for us in this department. Thank you.
Thanks, Alicia. And actually, I forgot to pause for questions after Ryan, and does anybody have any questions for Ryan or Alicia about HAF or down payment assistance or Restore Health and Safety?
I have a quick question about the foreclosure avoidance counseling. If the contracts are ending in June, do we know if and when the new contracts will be going out?
Hi, Amy.
Hi.
We do have an ask with this funding as well for foreclosure avoidance counseling. And as we get closer to finding out about those funds, we will be reaching out to our homeownership centers to request if you want to continue counseling clients participating in the OFA program, as well as other clients that are needing help with foreclosure avoidance. So when we know closer to when if we're going to get these funds or not, we will be reaching out to our homeownership centers. So we're hoping.
Okay. Awesome. Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions for Ryan or Alicia before we move on to homeownership development updates? Okay, we'll save some time at the end as well. But Jessica, go for it.
Great. Can you change the slide? Oh, perfect. Thank you. Well, good afternoon. I'm Jessica McKinnon. I use she, her pronouns, and I manage our LIFT and HDIP homeownership development programs. Our first update, we kind of have a lot going on over here. Our first update is that you may have received a notice of permanent rule change for Lyft. This is a project that's been in the works since last summer. Essentially, we're separating the Lyft rental and the Lyft homeownership manuals, and also amending our manual to include the changes that allow for the new per unit subsidy structure that we're using for our NOFA this year. We published a draft of our manual for public comment last fall and received some good feedback. The manual stayed similar in content, but we did reorganize it to be more accessible. That new version was published as a temporary rule in January, and this process is just to finalize that manual and enshrine it as a permanent rule. Our manual, the new rental manual, and some minor rule wording changes are currently up for public comment, which will be open until March 24th. The public hearing for this rule change will be March 19th. If you have feedback specific to the manual or Lyft in general, you're welcome to submit it following the instructions on the website, which I'm posting a link in chat here. And you're also welcome to attend the public hearing. Please don't email any of us on our team feedback. It does need to go through the official process, which is outlined in that website link. The public hearing won't involve any kind of substantial presentation from us. It's mostly just going to be a listening session to receive your feedback or anyone who wants to attend that meeting. The second item of note is another project we've been working on for a long time now. Historically, Lyft requirements meant that home buyers of a Lyft-funded property couldn't access mortgages supported by GSEs like Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac. Last year, we worked with our Lyft working group and DOJ to find a solution, and we were able to change our Lyft agreement documents to comply with Fannie and Freddie's requirements. This helped new projects, but not any projects that were currently under construction or already sold. I am excited to share that we've finished an amendment for those existing projects that would bring their legal agreements in compliance with Fannie and Freddie. We did reach out to our contact list for all of our partners with eligible projects with details on how to get this amendment. If you have a Lyft project with us that closed in 2023 or earlier and you did not receive an email, please reach out to us. This is optional, but we do highly recommend going through this amendment process to make things more accessible for your home buyers. And then our last update is the NOFA. Our team is very busy right now with reviewing applications that we've received. A few weeks ago, we did post an amendment. It made some very minor scoring changes to the financial capacity criteria. These changes should bring our requirements more in line with the reality of nonprofit development work. We also added almost $2.2 million to our Lyft offering, so hopefully we'll be able to serve a couple more projects with that funding. We are currently accepting applications, which will be awarded on a first come, first served basis. The first round of application review closes on March 10th. We are oversubscribed in all categories, though, so it's most likely that there will not be a second round of awards. Can you change the slide, Talia? Thank you. This table shows where we are in our NOFA and our applications, so you'll want to focus on those middle rows outlined in red. That shows the funding that is available in each set aside in bold, and then the amount of applications we've received in each set aside underneath. We received 21 applications, including almost $10 million in applications for small and emerging developers, over 15 million for culturally specific organizations and in counties underserved by Lyft, and over $37 million for all other applicants. The application account, or these applications account for over 350 units across Oregon. While it is disappointing that we won't be able to support all of the projects that applied, we are very excited to see that our changes to have made the projects or the program more accessible to small, rural, and new partners. And it's great to see so much good work happening for affordable homeownership development across the state. And that is all for me.
Great. Thank you so much, Jessica. Any questions for Jessica, Alicia, or Ryan? Go for it, Joseph.
Thank you. Thanks, Jessica. So when looking at this table, should we think of that third column as something like a set aside on its own, like funding? Because I see that there's more applications than available funds for small and emerging and for counties underserved. So would funding for all other applicants potentially go to those set asides before they go to all other applicants? Or do you kind of know what I'm asking? Like,
Yeah, I think I get what you're asking. And I think it's going to be a little bit of a finicky process on our side. Essentially, once we get all of the applications, we're just going to line every applicant up in order of the final submission date. And then we're just going to start from the beginning and start assigning them to which category. So if there is still more funding in all other applicants and we run out of small and emerging developers, but the next person in line is a small and emerging developer, they would be eligible for that all other applicants set aside. So essentially, an applicant can always move from the left to the right. So a small and emerging developer could also be a CSO in counties underserved by LIFT, but they can't move from right to left, essentially.
right.
If that makes sense and answers your question.
Yeah, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Scott, do you want to unmute and ask your question?
Sure. Yeah, I have a tiebreaker question because I remember from one of the January calls, you hadn't finalized a definition for that geographic distribution. So have you guys figured out how you'll define that?
That's a great question. We are in the conversations. I don't have anything really solid to write down and share with you, but in our conversations, we're going to be looking at, so more specific to your location, not the county. So like Lane County is very large. Someone on one side of Lane County should not be disadvantaged because someone on the other side of Lane County has already been awarded. So we're going to look more specific to your location. And we're only considering this LIFT round of applications. So we're not going to consider the history of LIFT funding in your area. But we haven't gotten something super specific yet. We're hoping that the final submission dates will work out to be more staggered so that we've only got, if a tiebreaker comes up, it'll only be between a couple of organizations and not a whole bunch at the same time. I'm sorry I don't have a more specific answer to answer that.
Any other questions for Jessica while she's here? Oh,
yeah,
okay.
Sarah actually posted a question in the chat. She asked, do I think it is likely that more projects may be funded, but at levels less than the full funding request? I think our intent is to fund all or most of the projects at their full ask, and then anyone who kind of comes in at the end of the line, we could make an offering for a portion. That is our intent. There might be, maybe when we see all of the numbers come in, we might reach out and ask, but I think we plan on funding the full portion until we run out. And I see Talia nodding, so.
Thank you, Jessica. And do you have one more slide or?
No, that's all for me.
Oh, okay. Jessica does do a good job of keeping this chart is available on our homeownership development NOFA website. So these numbers are up there in case anybody needs them. And then as funds are awarded, we'll be updating the chart, but likely outcomes related to awarded funds won't be up there until around June. So but we'll keep providing updates as we can. And last but not least, Nathan, do you want to provide an update on how session is going so far?
Did you say me?
Oh.
I'm sorry, I have really bad internet right now.
Yeah, you're up.
Oh, great. Okay, great. Hi, everyone. Again, my name is Nathan Clark. I use him pronouns, and I'm the Government Relations and Legislative Coordinator here at OHCS, supporting the Homeownership Division. Can I share some slides, Talia?
Sure. Yeah, go for it.
I'm going to share just a couple slides because it makes it a little bit easier. I can't share, but that's okay. So, so far, we are about a little over a month and a half into session. So the next deadline that I like to share with folks is out on March. Aha, here we go. All right, I'm going to share this. It's going to be much easier to understand what I'm talking about. So here's our key deadlines for the session. So we are still kind of in that first part where all bills are live, anything can happen. But the next deadline is March 21st. It's a deadline to schedule sessions in the chamber that a bill originates in. And after that, we'll have a much better sense of what's going to continue on and what's going to essentially die. And then that deadline, again, we have April 9th is the deadline to hold those work sessions in that first chamber. And then you see another slew of bills drop off. And then in May, you have 2 more deadlines where they drop off as we get closer and closer to sine die. Per the state constitution, sine die is June 29th. And that means that has to be done. It's a 160-day session. It's done at that. But the leadership at the Capitol in our legislature, have a target sine die of June 18th. So that mid to end June, the session will be done. A couple quick updates for us. Housing still remains a priority. It's a priority for Governor Kotek. It's a priority for many legislators. Capitol. Last long session, 2,836 bills were filed. And so far this year, we're at 3,056. Bills drop often. We had a slew drop this week of bills as people continue to work through concepts and then release them either in committee or personally, depending on what their goal is with that. We have about 4 bills that the agency this session are working on. 2 that I'll highlight are 3034 and 3035. 3034 is a Housing Stabilization Division bill, and that's making a technical change over there with how they operate some of their programs. And that passed the House 2 weeks ago. And then House Bill 3035 is a Homeownership Division bill, and that bill is codifying flex lending. So currently, Oregon, currently the only program that's codified is the Oregon Residential Bond Loan Program. And then since the Homeownership Division has launched Flex Lending, which has First Home and Next Step in 23 and 24, these have been operating on an exemption by the Department of Justice, and they've recommended that we put these into statute. So that's what this bill does, and it gives us a little more flexibility around how we can do lending in the future. And so that passed the committee flying colors. It's passed the House with a pretty solid support vote. And so that's now waiting in the queue in the Senate side. So we don't know when that will get a hearing on the Senate side. Still hearing their bill once they get through their first House bills. So for us, we don't anticipate any issues with that, but in May is when those deadlines that I showed on that last slide really come into play. Other than that, there's a lot of great bills going through, and we're just kind of writing things out and seeing what's going to happen with the overall budget of the agency and with the budget of the state, with all of the uncertainties that we see right now.
Thanks, Nathan. You cut out a little bit, but any questions for Nathan while we have him here? Session. Okay. Well, I know we're hitting up against the hour. Do any partners have updates that they want to share? Feel free to raise your hand or come off mute. Okay. Well, then I will just share our last slide, which is just all the upcoming engagement sessions that we have going on. Most of them were mentioned already, but we have our Housing Stability Council meeting coming up tomorrow. And I think homeownership has one agenda item. Our manufactured housing section is going to give a briefing on the work accomplished over the past biennium. And you can, I'll post the link in a second, or if anybody else has the PowerPoint open, if you want to post the link. So you can always register to attend or provide public comment. Jessica mentioned the LIFT manual public hearing March 19th, and then our homeownership development specific partner call is April 22nd. So by then we'll have some more updates on how things are shaping out with NOFA applications and evaluation. Although we probably won't be able to say what's been approved or not, because everything needs to go to Housing Stability Council to be approved. And then last but not least, the next quarterly homeownership partner call is June 5th. So join us. If we don't see you before then, hopefully we'll see you in June. And actually, for those language access and community outreach, LACO grantees, we also will be having a convening that I think Gary has sent out communications about in May. So some of you will get to see in person, and thank you for posting those links, Jessica. Anything else anybody wants to announce or share before we close out? All right. Well, thank you so much to everyone who presented and shared information and asked questions and listened in today. We really appreciate you and all your work, and we'll see you soon. Bye.